a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it.
And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it. And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it. And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it. And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it. And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it. And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it. And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it. And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it. And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it. And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it.
And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it.
And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it. And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it. And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it. And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it. And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it. And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Head to Head Sports. I'm your host, Brian Parker. Normally along with my co-host, Mr. Randall Hargrove, but due to unforeseen circumstances, he's not going to be able to join us today. But the show will go on, and we are grateful to all of our viewers out there. We are streaming live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And the show will actually then air tomorrow on Roku as well. If you haven't added Empower TV Network to your Roku, please do so. Just go to add a channel, search for Empower, the letter N, the word power. And that way you will not only get head-to-head sports, but if you are interested in comedy, podcasts, talk shows, short films, feature films, we have all those things available 24/7 live streaming and on demand on our Roku channel. Well, listen, y'all, I'm not going to lie to you. I've been waiting for this day for a while, partially because we love football here. And we want to start talking about what's coming up for this current NFL season. We know the season was a little bit different. We actually had a game on every single day of the week for the first time in history because COVID, rescheduling games and things like that. A game was actually played on every calendar day of the week. I mean, not same week, but throughout the season, there was a game on every single day. Never been done before. Hopefully we don't have that again. And hopefully now that the majority of teams have been vaccinated, interruptions like that won't be but few and far between. Hopefully, fingers crossed, guys. We also are looking forward to the current NFL season, as it looks like we're going to have fans back in the stands. That's always good for the fans. It's always good for the teams. And I'm sure the owners agree with that because it's good for their revenue. So everybody is going to win off of that. Now, what we wanted to do is that we have approximately 4 weeks till the NFL season begins. And what we're going to do over those 4 weeks is preview 2 divisions each week. This week, we're going to talk about the NFC South and the AFC North. Now, we started with those 2 divisions, mostly because we are based in Charlotte, North Carolina. So the NFC South is right here in the heart of that, with the hometown team, the Carolina Panthers. I also picked the AFC North because Randall is a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. We'll get to that too. And about our predictions. And even though Rand's not going to be on today, I do have his predictions. I'll share that with you guys. We're going to track that throughout the season and see how it goes. Last season, we had a really, really good time with our previews. And just to give you guys a little bit of context, one of us was dead on the money.
Ooh. Super Bowl.
I got Baltimore winning the whole thing. Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm going Saints coming out of the NFC.
Okay. Again.
Yeah. Again, I'm going complete homer. I'm going to go with my boys. My boys going to the Super Bowl.
Oh, okay. We're going Steelers.
Winning it?
Yeah. Winning it. We're going to get number 6.
What do you got?
Look, this is going to sound crazy. I agree with you. Normally, it's hard to repeat. I just don't see anybody slowing my homeboy down like that. So I'm going my homeboy, and I cannot believe that I'm about to say this.
Tampa.
TB12 done found the fountain of youth down there in all that warm weather, all them weapons. He got his main man Gronk so they can do their little together and headbutt each other. And I think they're going to take it all the way. I ain't talking about just to the Super Bowl. I mean winning the whole thing.
Tampa's winning it?
Tampa is winning. Trust me, that breaks my heart to say. So Tampa won the whole thing. Now, trust me, they went through a lot to get to that point. When I made that prediction, it was really because I looked at what Tom Brady does best. I looked at his receivers, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. I looked at his tight ends even before they added Gronk. And I was like, hey, listen, this is going to be a dynamic offense. They had Leonard Fournette in the background, in the backfield. And then they had Ronald Jones as a change of back. None of that really went the way that it went. O.J. Howard went down, and Ronald Jones started first, and then Fournette would come in behind him, and they brought in AB, but they were having a hard time sometimes getting Mike Evans and Godwin the ball because the offensive line wasn't protecting Tom long enough, so they had to start doing other things. Scotty Miller became a lot of a slot receiving threat, and they took some L's early on. So it looked like my prediction was going to be kind of dead in the water to begin with, and it looked like New Orleans really had to beat on them to really not only come out of NFC South, but to challenge somebody like Green Bay for the NFC Championship. But, you know, a lot of things bounced their way. You know, the Packers took the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands. He could have possibly come back, and we'd be talking about Green Bay and Kansas City, other kind of stuff. But the one thing, too, that I really, really saw with Tampa last year was that defense. You know, that defense was for real. They have a couple of lapses early on where they got exposed, but as the season wore on, that defensive unit just got better. And you know what? While we're talking about Tampa Bay, let's just jump right in and talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who signed their entire starting lineup back from last year. So, of course, there's no surprise. You've got Tom Brady, the ageless wonder, coming back at quarterback. Behind him, though, his backup. And you know what, guys? You really got to figure out a lot of times who your backup is. Because as the Dallas Cowboys found out, when you don't have a backup, your season is done. And the only reason not to jump on to Dallas, but the only reason that they even still had a shot was because of the crappy division they were in. Any other division, their season would have ended in November. And, you know, if you're a Cowboys fan, you know that your season ends in December. I'm messing, but not really. So they've got Blaine Gabbert as the backup, and then Kyle Trask as the third string. Running backs right now, Leonard Fournette is getting the nod as the starter for right now, with Ronald Jones as the backup. Those can kind of flip-flop pretty much. Also vying for running backs that they currently have on the squad. They have C.J. Precise, had some time in Seattle too. Tremaine Pope, Keyshawn Vaughn, and Giovanni Bernard, formerly of the Cincinnati Bengals. Gio is a good change of back. He's more of a scat back, so good for first and second downs. Really, really good at catching the ball out of the backfield, which was a problem early on for Fournette and Ronald Jones with Tom Brady. Tom Brady, coming from New England, is used to getting the ball out of his hands quickly. And if the receivers don't get open fast enough, if the tight end can't get a little separation in between the front four and the secondary and find a time to get it to, a lot of times he's going to rely on his backs. Okay? Think about all the backs up in New England that Tom would on to be able to get rid of the ball quickly, whether he passed it laterally or he passed it straight out of the backfield, and then that running back was able to make the person miss. Tom Brady has always been able to rely on his backs to catch the ball in the backfield and hit upfield. Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette looked totally lost when Tom Brady tried to pass the ball, a lot of times dropping the balls and things like that. Let me tell you something. Giovanni Bernard, he's not the biggest thing out there, but if you pass him the ball in the backfield, and he has just a little bit of space, if you are a cornerback trying to come up and tackle him, good luck with that. He might make you look bad. So we really, really see that this team offensively has gotten better. Rob Gronkowski is coming back again as a tight end. And then you have O.J. Howard. Not only do you have Gronk and Howard, but then you have Cameron Brate, tight end. So if Bruce Arians wants to run a lot of two tight end sets, he has two great pass catch receiving tight ends, as well as tight ends that can block, chip block, and things like that, to give Brady even more time to find his receivers, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, Scotty Miller, down the field. It is going to be crazy. What this really does too is that if you start with a two tight end set, two receivers split out, basically one of your tight ends becomes a slot receiver. Then you've got a pass catching running back in the backfield, whether it's Fournette, whether it's Ronald Jones, whether it's Giovanni Bernard. You can't double team anybody. If you do, Tom Brady will make you pay. As long as they keep that pocket clean and they keep Brady off his back, they're going to kill you. that's just crazy. You have no chance. And the defense comes back. And I mean, they brought everybody back. Shaq Barrett, Donovan Sue, Golston, Devin White, Levante David. I said Shaq Barrett. Jason Pierre-Paul. It's just going to be crazy, y'all. It's just going to be absolutely crazy. I'm not saying that they're going to run the table, but think about this. They play in the NFC South. That means that they play New Orleans, Carolina, and Atlanta twice. That's 6 games right there. I'm not saying they're going to win all 6. I honestly think that they may split Carolina and they may split New Orleans. I do. I think there's a good chance that they do that. Even so, I think they'll get both off of Atlanta. That's 4 wins right there. And remember, this year we have a 17th game. Preseason is 1 game short. Regular season is 1 game longer. So you can't have an 8-8 team anymore. There is no more. Either you're going to have a winning season or you're going to have a losing season unless you tie games. So unless you go 8-8-1, you can't have really pretty much a non-winning or non-losing season. Either you're going to go 9-8 or you're going to go 8-9. Unless, again, like I said, you have a tie or 2 that would affect your record that way. But if it's straight up, then you're not going to have a winning. You're not going to have a non-winning, non-losing season. So I'm going to give them those 4 wins right there. And then when we start looking at the rest of their schedule, some games of note for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They open the season at home against the Dallas Cowboys. Win. Atlanta. Win. Then they go to LA. This is going to be a tougher game. We're going to see what the addition of Matthew Stafford does. And a lot of times when teams travel across country, it does take a little bit out of them. Their defense normally shows up. Offense may take a while to get clicking. But with a seasoned quarterback like Tom Brady, I don't see that being as much of an issue. I really don't. And then the 4th game is going to be against New England. Tom is going to go back to Foxborough, face either Newton or Mac Jones, and they're going to walk away, I believe, with the win. So in their first 4 games, they could potentially start out the gate 4-0. The one game that I really see giving them a hard time is the Rams game. That's about it. So either they're going to be 3-1 or they're going to be 4-1 after the first 4 games. Most players and coaches will tell you that they break. Well, when it was 16 games, they would break it up into 4 different quarters. Now you're going to have one quarter that's either 5 games. But I still look at it from the 4 quarters. How you start is going to be huge. Then listen to the next 3 games that Tampa Bay has. Miami, Philly, at Philly, home to Chicago. Chicago will be interesting because I think that the defense may give Tom Brady a little bit of problems. But the problem is it's going to be in Tampa. So they won't have to travel. It's a later game. It's a 4:00 game. So they're going to have some time to, rest up, work on the defense and everything else. I think they'll be fine, to be honest with you. But even so, through the first 7 games, still, I only see 2 that would give them a problem. So at the very worst, they would be 5-2. After that, New Orleans, Washington, the Giants. So after 11 games, maybe I don't even see New Orleans getting them. I don't even see it. It's very possible that they're 9-2 through 11. Then you got Indianapolis, Atlanta through 13 games. Buffalo, the 14th game. Buffalo may actually give them something. And it is going to be in Tampa, but I really like Josh Allen. I really like Stephon Diggs. I really like what Sean McDermott is doing with those Buffalo Bills. And we'll talk about them when we talk about the NFC East. But I'm telling y'all that even through those first 14 games, it's a very good chance that we're talking about about an 11-3 team. And then they close out New Orleans, Carolina, the Jets, and then Carolina again. So again, I think it's a good chance that even through the rest of that maybe they lose 1 or 2 more of those games. Even if that's the case, that's 5 or 6 losses. So we're still talking about a 12-5, 11-6 team. Good enough to win the NFC South easily. And that's who I'm going with, the NFC South. Let's talk about our Carolina Panthers. This is a team that last year had 5 wins, and I think Randall and I both pretty much predicted that they'd have 4 wins. And they had Teddy Bridgewater as their quarterback. They very well could have won another 4 games. That was the scary part with Carolina last year, is that they had a lot of games where they were down in the 4th quarter with the ball in their hands, and Teddy Bridgewater just could not deliver. Teddy Bridgewater is no longer part of the team. He is now part of the Denver Broncos, fighting it out with Drew Lock for the starting quarterback position. We'll see how that goes with them. Now, what we all were anticipating here in Carolina is, before all of these sexual misconduct allegations started coming up, was that Carolina was really going to be in play for Deshaun Watson. And there was so many rumors about how many first-round picks they would have to offer. Would Christian McCaffrey have to be part of the equation to get the Texans to move? Would it be worth doing that? And then all hell broke loose, and the Panthers decided, hey, we can't wait. So they did something that a lot of us were very shocked about initially, was that they went to New York and they said, hey, we want to get Sam Darnold. He's only a couple of years removed from college, where at the time he was ranked extremely high, and he was drafted very high. His time in New York was very terrible. Nobody's going to lie about that. But when you really, really break it down, a lot of that wasn't on Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold was kind of put in some crazy positions, a lot of coaching changes, a lot of turmoil, things not working out with Le'Veon Bell, supposed to be a stalwart running back for him. not having receivers. Nelson Aguilar always hurt. Robbie Anderson, his best receiver, gets traded to Carolina. So he has nobody to throw it. Nobody can run the ball. And now you got a young guy with the weight of New York on his shoulders, and he just tried to do too much. A lot of times that ended up being interceptions and things like that because he was really trying too much. Now he comes to a better situation where between Matt Rule and offensive coordinator Joe Brady, Sam Darnold is going to have a lot more weapons at his disposal and a lot more stability. The program actually does fit him best. So he should be able to do well in the NFC South. If he doesn't, then all the naysayers may be proved to be correct, that it doesn't matter how many weapons you give Sam Darnold, he is what he is. I tend to think that he probably still has a little bit of cred as long as he hasn't hit the David Carr phenomenon. If anybody remembers David Carr back in the days with the Houston Texans, David Carr got hit so much that even when somebody would just say boo, he thought he was about to get hit again. And it just messed up his psyche. I don't think Sam Darnold is damaged goods just yet, but he will have no excuses this year between having Christian McCaffrey in the background. The Panthers just drafted another back, Chubb Hub. Kind of like StubHub, but Chubb Hub. I like that. But so they're going to have another phenomenal running back for a change of pace for Christian McCaffrey. Keep him fresh. They're still bringing back Reggie Bonifon. So that should be good. So we'll see how that goes. Trenton Cannon is on the depth chart. We'll see if he makes it or if they put him on the practice squad, whatever the case may be. You've got some running backs that are actually good receivers as well. Start them out in the backfield, flank them to the left, flank them to the right, put them in motion. You can do a lot of things with both of these running backs. Of course, McCaffrey's going to be your feature back. He's going to be your workhorse and everything else. But it's really good to see that they did address running back by bringing in Chubb Hubbard as well. When McCaffrey did go down last year early, it did change the running game a little bit. But because of his backup, who I can't think of his name right now, Mike Brown, I think, he did a very, very good job for McCaffrey. He really did. He really put up some really good numbers. And now Sam Darnold is going to have the services of Robbie Anderson. Last year was his first year getting into the system. He actually had more targets than the number one receiver before, who was DJ Moore. Hopefully, during this offseason, DJ Moore and Sam Darnold will be able to get on the same page. Teddy Bridgewater had a hard time finding DJ Moore. There were times when I was trying to put a couple milk cartons at Bank of America Stadium looking for DJ Moore. It wasn't because he wasn't on the field. It was because Teddy Bridgewater simply couldn't find him. DJ Moore, when he has the ball in his hands, can do some phenomenal things. This is a contract year for DJ Moore. He's going to want to be able to put up some numbers. Sam Darnold, you need to do your best to find him. Other receivers on the depth chart include Terrence Jr., who in camp has really turned a lot of heads with his play. He's a rookie. You've got Moore, solid last year. Brandon Solster's coming back. Keith Kirkwood coming back. So we got a little bit more depth in the wide receiver position as well. Tight ends is kind of unproven with Dan Arnold, Ian Thomas coming back. The sad is that Ian Thomas is currently listed as the second tight end, but he's been in the system longer than any other tight end. That doesn't give me a lot of confidence about how Ian Thomas has progressed. So if there is going to be a glaring need, it could possibly be on the offensive level at tight end. We've got some tackles that are pretty used to the system. Greg Little just got traded to Miami, so we'll see how they address the tackle position there. But defensively, defensively, this unit is going to be even better. They've had another year to gel. They had some really, really young guys. They got a lot of good playing time last year. I mean, Brian Burns coming back, Derek Brown coming back, Hassan Reddick coming in, Jermaine Carter, Jeremy Chin, Shaq Thompson is coming back. Denzel Perryman. This is going to be a phenomenal defense. If Dante Jackson can regain his speed and swag from 2-3 years ago, that's going to be impressive. Dante was struggling with foot issues last year. I already mentioned Jeremy Chin. They're going to move him between safety, linebacker, running back, quarterback. He's going to be the head chef. They're going to have Jeremy Chin all over the place because he is that dynamic of a player. Be extremely scary. It could be the thing that really keeps Carolina in games when the offense just isn't clicking. As long as that offense doesn't put the defense in a bunch of 3-and-out positions, they could be very, very scary for next year. Moving on to the New Orleans Saints. That might be the year of the Aints. With the retirement of Drew Brees, Sean Payton has an open competition for quarterback. It's going to be Jameis eating a win, eating a W, or Taysom Hill, who up until this point was more of a gadget play quarterback / wildcat / running back / tight end kind of guy, but they're actually wanting to see if he can be a full-time quarterback. I have my doubts about that and reservations. I really think, honestly, Jameis Winston playing in Sean Payton's system and watching Drew Brees all of last year has probably given him a little bit newfound hope, maybe a little bit more leadership. When he was in Tampa Bay, I don't think that was necessarily the case. Jameis was just slinging the ball around, and he threw almost as many touchdowns as he did interceptions. He was a 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions. So a lot of defenses were improved anytime they went to Tampa and played against Jameis. Hopefully, if he can calm the turnovers down, he would be the better starter. Jameis has the better arm. Jameis can read defenses very well. Sometimes he just tries to do too much. Well, he does have some pretty good receivers in Michael Thomas, Traquan Smith, Marquez Callaway. So that's not going to be an issue for him. Alvin Kamara is a great backfield back that can catch out of the backfield. Latavius Murray can catch out of the backfield. Devontae Freeman, who's bounced around quite a bit, is capable of catching out of the backfield. So if he does need to do a couple of checkdowns, he definitely has weapons around him to do that. Keep him from having to laser focus in on one receiver. Hopefully, if he does get the job, he doesn't try to do that with Michael Thomas, that he uses all of his other receivers around him so that he doesn't put himself in a position of interceptions and everything. Of course, that defense, Cam Jordan hadn't gone anywhere. He's still around. Marshawn Lattimore is still around. He ain't gone nowhere. Malcolm Jenkins is still around. He ain't gone nowhere. Marcus Williams is still around. He ain't gone nowhere. So that defense is going to be just as formidable. This is another one of those teams that, as long as the offense doesn't put them in a lot of 3-and-out positions and the defense crash, the defense will keep them in a lot of games. And there are going to be some high-scoring games as well, because when Jameis is on, he's on. Jameis can easily pass for 400 or 500 yards in a game. I'm not going to lie to you. He may be even a good pickup for your fantasy football team. Even when they don't win, especially if they don't win and they start to get in games and they have to play from behind, oh, he's going to air the ball out. So even if they don't have a pretty good season on paper, if he's your fantasy quarterback, you probably could still do pretty well. So just kind of keep that in mind. But when you think about New Orleans and you look at their schedule, they've got a pretty tough schedule. They open up immediately at Green Bay. Then their second game is going to be Bank of America Stadium in Carolina. That's going to be a hard-fought game. Then they go to Foxborough and they play New England. Then they get a little relief. They play the NFC least 2 weeks in a row, first against the New York Giants and then against the Washington football team at FedEx Field. I'm going to be honest with you. If they lose that game against the WFT, they're going to have a long season. Not because I don't respect Washington's defense. They have a stout defense. Ron Rivera is going to have them boys ready to play some defense. But if Ryan Fitzpatrick-led offense hurts you like that, it's going to be hard. After that, Seattle, that could be a loss. Tampa, that could be a loss. Atlanta, probably a win. Tennessee, that's going to be tough, but it's going to be in Tennessee. That could potentially be a loss. It's probably going to be a loss. Tennessee just added Julio Jones. Tannehill still has that bad, and I mean that bad man. I had to say it like that. Derrick Henry, just ridiculous. Derrick Henry is still stiff-arming people right now. I think if Derrick Henry goes to family reunions, he stiff-arms everybody. That's a bad man. So their season could get crazy very, very early into the first half of the year. New Orleans is going to have a hard time at it. And rounding up the NFC South, the Atlanta Falcons. You know, they couldn't afford to keep Julio Jones because they needed to be able to sign their very, very young roster, which is basically a sign to the league that the Atlanta Falcons are in rebuild mode. The only relic of the past that they really, really have now is Matt Ryan. If you say Calvin Ridley, yeah, he's been around for a little while now, but more so than ever, they've really got an expensive quarterback on their hands that they just cannot afford to cut this year. But next year is going to be a different story. The problem is that they really haven't drafted any type of heir apparent to Matt Ryan. And I don't quite understand that. You've got A.J. McCarron. He's been around for a couple of years now. Kind of been a journeyman. So I don't really think that that's going to be your long-term answer for Atlanta. And if you do draft a quarterback in next year's draft, is it going to be somebody that's ready right away, or is it going to be a project, somebody that needs to sit and watch? So then are you going to cut Matt Ryan next year and bring in a veteran to start the season to then see if your rookie can come in after so many games or sit the entire season and be ready for their second season? So Atlanta, in my opinion, is going nowhere anytime soon. I think this year they're done. Next year, because they don't have an answer to Matt Ryan, they're done. If they bring Matt Ryan back next year, it's just going to be one more year, 1 year probably too long. He's not going to be able to keep up with his division. You know, once New Orleans decides it's going to be Jameis Winston, he could probably be their quarterback for a little while. If Sam Darnold does shake out to be a decent quarterback for the Panthers, he could be there for a while. Tom Brady could still play for Tampa Bay for another 2 years. So Atlanta is going to have an extremely hard time coming out of the cellar of the NFC South. I just don't see it. Even at running back, they've got Mike Davis, who was really, really good for Carolina. Now they're going to feature him. And his backups, Cordero Patterson is listed as a running back, but he's also listed as a receiver because he does do both. Calvin Ridley is your main threat. because Julio's gone. You don't have Roddy White anymore. You know, that's a relic of the past. The most interesting thing that Atlanta has is Kyle Pitts, their tight end. When we're getting excited about your tight end, you ain't going nowhere. And that's not a ding at Kyle Pitts. But, you know, most people don't sit there and go, oh, man, that tight end is something else. So if you are a fantasy owner and you pick up Kyle Pitts, and that might work out for you. Now, Kyle Pitts is possibly going to be the Greg Olsen of the Atlanta Falcons. And what I mean by that is he's going to end up being Matt Ryan's best friend, because when you can't get the ball downfield, push the ball downfield, the person that you're going to probably see more than anybody is your pass catching tight end. They sneaks behind the offensive line, gets right in front of your defensive backs. And he may make a living off of that. He may even sit there and break a tackle or two and get more yards after the catch, which is extremely valuable when you're playing fantasy football, because tight ends are very, very hard. You know, if you're doing fantasy football, one of the positions you draft very, very early these days is tight end, because you run out of good tight ends very, very fast. I hadn't figured that out for so many years, and now I see that when I do my fantasy football teams, don't be afraid to take the tight end in the second or third round. Seriously. If you don't get Saquon Barkley or Patrick Mahomes or somebody like that in your first round or two, go for the tight end. Every other quarterback after that will be decent. Don't worry about the quarterback. It's all going to be about your tight end, your receiver, and your running backs. Little fantasy note there. So anyway, that wraps up the NFC South. I'm telling you, it's going to be crazy in the South. But ultimately, I still think it's going to be Tampa Bay's is going to be Tampa Bay's division to lose. Now, I asked Randall about his picks, and no surprise, he's a smart man. We came up with the exact same thing. Now, moving to the AFC North. I brought this up because I really wanted to hear Randall try to tell me that his Steelers were going to go to the Super Bowl this year. But I will give him credit. He didn't pick the Steelers. And we'll talk about the Steelers in a second. But the ones that I took, that he took as well, and I'm sure we can't believe it, but it's true. The Cleveland Browns had a heck of a season last year. They finished 11-5 overall. They were third in the NFC North. They still came behind Pittsburgh and Baltimore, but that was more so because Pittsburgh built such a impressive lead early on. I believe they started last year out at 11-0. So they had a lot of climbing to do just to finish third. Of course, the Cincinnati Bengals ended up fourth because Joe Burrow got hurt pretty early on and wasn't able to finish the season. But what we saw at the end of last year with Cleveland was Baker Mayfield seeming like he started to put pieces together. He started to play complete games as opposed to having a good quarter or a good half. He started having complete games. He started really getting his receivers into it. That included his tight end, Austin Hooper. That included Nick Chubb, Kareem catching balls out of the backfield. He has them coming back. And he has Jarvis Landry was there last year, of course. And he has Odell Beckham, who from all reports fully healed and is ready to go. Now, last year, once Baker started putting all the pieces together, most people made the note of the fact that Odell Beckham Jr. was nowhere on the field. That can only be a good thing, because now the challenge will be for Baker and Odell to figure out in this offseason how to get on the same page. If he can carry the success he had from last year over into this year, and Odell can stay healthy, I don't care what people say, that just gives him another weapon, another threat out there that will make it harder and harder to spy or to double team. If you double team Odell, they're going to find Jarvis Landry. They're going to find Austin Hooper. They're going to find David Njoku. They're going to find other people. So if you want Odell to be a high-price decoy, go right ahead. But he will burn you. Baker will push that ball. So don't get it twisted. And to complement that, the defense is coming back. You've got Myles Garrett on one side. You got Jadeveon Clowney on the other side. People can say what they want about Jadeveon's motor. Jadeveon Clowney didn't get no smaller and didn't get weaker. He's still strong and fast. His incentive is to take your quarterback's head off, and he's going to come and do that. You got some other nice additions to their defense as well that should really, really give them a nice, strong defense. So they're not going to necessarily have to beat you in shootouts. Baker's not going to have 400 and 500-yard games every single game just for them to beat you. Just continuously move the chains, keep the time of possession, keep the clock moving, and they should have a relatively easy time with the AFC North. Their next contenders that I see would be the Baltimore Ravens. I know Randall thought that it's going to be Pittsburgh Steelers, but I'm going to tell you the Ravens, I feel like, are going to make a greater leap and a greater step than the Pittsburgh Steelers. My reasoning is that Lamar Jackson is really, really into this offseason. They're going to have him doing more passing. Hopefully he won't have to run as much. You've got J.K. Dobbins coming back. He's a very good serviceable back. They don't have I forgot his name. Mark play for New Orleans. They don't have him anymore. But they have Gus Edwards backing him up. Then you have Marquise Brown, Sammy Watkins as your receivers. So his receivers are going to be decent, but then he also has Mark Andrews coming back. That was one of his favorite targets at tight end. There's going to be a lot of these tight ends that when they renegotiate these contracts, it's going to be hard for them to be considered tight ends because of everything that they do. That's going to be extremely hard for contract negotiations. But I believe they have a more well-rounded team than Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh told me that they're going to be able to run the ball. Yes, they have Najee Harris now, and we'll talk about Pittsburgh in a second. But that doesn't mean just because you have a good back, the offensive line is going to be able to let them do what they do. I don't believe that it was all on Connor last year. I think it was their line. And we really need to see if the line is going to be able to create enough holes for whoever is in the backfield to get through. I have more faith in the offensive line for the Baltimore Ravens, particularly because of who the quarterback is. Your line doesn't have to necessarily be the best offensive line because you have to account for that quarterback. When you have a quarterback and then you got that running back and you start talking about RPO, run pass options, and if he's playing under center versus shotgun and he goes to pull that ball back, you don't know if Lamar still has the ball, but you have to think about it. If he does hand it off, then you got to sit there. Your eyes have to follow that ball. When he's in shotgun, he can still do the same thing, but at least you know that it's in his hands for a certain amount of time, but he can still pull it away at the very last minute, and his speed around those edges will kill you. Nobody is worried a big statue Ben Roethlisberger running any RPOs with Najee Harris. Is not going to happen. But J.K. Dobbins, J.K. Dobbins can actually throw the ball too. So I can see some flea flickers too, where Lamar ends up catching it. So more from the Ravens this year. Why else do I see that? Well, let's look at their schedule. They open up on the road, Las Vegas. I'm going to give them that game. Then they got to go to Kansas City. They probably going to lose that game. But then they play Detroit, probably a win. Denver, probably a win. Indianapolis, probably a win. LA Chargers, probably a win. Cincinnati, probably a win. Minnesota, probably a win. Miami, probably a win. Chicago, probably a win. Cleveland, a loss. Pittsburgh, probably a win. Cleveland again, probably a win. Green Bay, probably a loss. Cincinnati, probably a win. LA Rams, probably a loss. Pittsburgh, probably a win. I counted about 4 or 5 L's out of a 17-game season. This is a 12-win team easily, which means that I'm really leaving to have a 13-win. I can't believe I just said that. I almost coughed out myself. Yeah, but those are going to be some strong records in the AFC. And having multiple 12-plus win teams in one division is going to make it harder on your wild cards in your conference. So think about that too. So if Pittsburgh does not get first or second in the AFC North, I don't see a wild card, because you still got to talk about Tennessee. You still got to talk about Buffalo. You may still be talking about New England. There's a whole lot of teams in the AFC that I would put over Pittsburgh right now. And I know that's rough to say. I know a lot of Steelers fans probably going to send some hate mail to me. I'm going to have somebody check my packages and everything like that. Maybe have them x-rayed and stuff. But I'm telling you, them terrible towels ain't going to do it for you this year. This is going to be Big Ben's swan song, and that's all well and good. Najee Harris may be able to give you some fantasy points, especially with short yardage, maybe 3rd and goals coming up in the middle, scoring and that kind of thing. But if that offensive line folds, we ain't going to be talking about them. So let's go ahead and dig into the Pittsburgh Steelers. Roethlisberger comes back, but his backup, if Ben gets hurt, is it Mason Rudolph? Is it going to be Dwayne Haskins? And going forward, who's your heir apparent in Pittsburgh? Same problem that Atlanta has. We've been holding on to Ben Roethlisberger for the last 35 years. And his production was pretty good last year, considering everything. But at some point, Father Time catches you. And somebody will say, well, Brian, y'all ain't saying that about Tom Brady. Well, Tom Brady's a different kind of cat. You know, he's proven that. Tom Brady keep going to Super Bowls. You don't see Roethlisberger in the Super Bowl every year. You don't see Matt Ryan in the Super Bowl every year. And they, compared to Tom Brady, have taken some hits. They've taken a lot of hits. And I'm sorry, Mason Rudolph? No. Dwayne Haskins? Hell no. So who do you got? So are you rebuilding? What does that mean for Juju Smith-Schuster? What does that mean for Chase Claypool? What does that mean for James Washington? Are you going to rebuild and still have them on the roster, or are you going to rebuild and get rid of some of these big contracts? You have Najee Harris as your starting back potentially. Benny Snell is going to be his backup. Then you got Kalen Ballage, you got McFarland, and some other guys rounding out your running back core. You got some good receivers. You got some decent running backs. Eric Ebron's coming back. Had a really good year last year. But again, when your tight end is having that good of a year, sometimes that's because you can't get the ball downfield to your receivers. Why? Because your offensive line isn't giving you time to. So if your offensive line isn't giving you enough time to get down to your receivers, how is your offensive line going to give you time to get the ball down? To protect for your running back. So I could be totally wrong. We'll let the season play out, and we'll see if I am about the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I don't think so. And lastly, we're going to look at the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, you know what? Here's the thing. I think Cincinnati is going to have a really, really good season. Last year, they finished 4-11, and most of that was because Joe Burrow got hurt. He's back. He's got Jamar Chase now as one of his wide receivers who he got to play with in college. So that'll be good for him. Somebody that's familiar. Tyler Boyd is a great receiver. You got T. Higgins, a good receiver. Little surprise, Mike Thomas hadn't been panning out. We'll see how that goes as training camp keeps going on. He's got a pretty good tight end. Joe Mixon is in the backfield. Samaje Perine is back there. So you've got some good pieces. They finished 4-11 last year. It'd be hard for me to see them win 8 games and 9 games. It really wouldn't. And if for not this team being in the AFC North and you put them in a division like AFC West or AFC South, put them down there with Indianapolis and Houston and the Titans. This is just a division that's already jam-packed with some really good teams. Yeah, I talked my smack about the Steelers, but I still think they're going to be decent. I just don't think that they're going to win the AFC North. And if you finish 3rd or 4th in the AFC North, then you can go ahead and start figuring out where you're going to vacation for the year or which couch you're going to watch the playoffs at. But it's one of those situations where you're just in a very competitive division. You need a division like the NFC East where everybody sucks and then you just one good team and you can win your division. The Cincinnati Bengals have a chance to go 8-9 or 9-8. I can see it. Why do you say that, Brian? Well, let's look at their schedule. They play Minnesota at Paul Brown Stadium in the first game. That is a winnable game for them. I know people are going to say, well, Brian, what are you talking about? Minnesota, Kirk Cousins. No, that's a good game. That's a game that they could potentially win. The second game is against Chicago. Now, let's just assume that it's still going to be Andy Dalton starting for the Chicago Bears. That's a winnable game. And probably going to get more hate mail. But the third game is against Pittsburgh at Heinz Field. And I have every reason to believe Cincinnati just might win. Yeah, I said it. Then they go play Jacksonville. That might be a win. Then they go play Green Bay on their 5th game. That's probably a L. They play Detroit after that. That could be a win or a loss. But then they play Baltimore. I'm going to call that a L. But then they play the New York Jets. That's potentially a win. Cleveland, Vegas come after that. They could probably lose those games. Their schedule gets a little harder with San Francisco down the way, Kansas City down the way, and then they got to play Cleveland and Pittsburgh again. So there are going to be some potential slip-ups for the Cincinnati Bengals. Listen, I'm not saying that the Bengals are going to win the AFC North anytime soon, but they're going to be a lot better than you think that they may be. So keep all of that in mind. I really think that we're going to see a really, really strong AFC North. So my predictions for the AFC North, well, let's see here. I've got Cleveland, Baltimore, Cincinnati, and Pittsburgh. Speaking to my man Randall, he thinks Pittsburgh is going to finish ahead of he thinks they're going to finish ahead of Baltimore. I'm not too convinced of that yet. Like I stated, I really, really think that Pittsburgh is going to have to prove, regardless who's in the backfield, that they're going to be able to block for them. So that's why I'm still a little bit skeptical that Pittsburgh is going to be able to finish behind the Cleveland Browns. I still can't believe I'm saying the Cleveland Browns are going to win the AFC North. I think Baltimore is going to give Cleveland more a run for their money, as I stated before, just simply because the opposing defense has to account for Lamar Jackson and the RPO. Does he really get rid of the ball? Does he keep it? Does he fake it? You think the running back has the ball, and the next thing you know, Lamar is streaking down the sideline for 45-yard touchdown runs. I'm telling you, that's going to happen. And if they do try to rush him hard, Mark Andrews will be one of his best receivers. Dobbins out of the backfield will be one of his best receivers, and he'll still be able to push it down the field when he needs to. Mark Ingram was the running back that I was thinking about earlier. Mark Ingram isn't back on the team this year. Neither is Snead, but he will still have other options to be able to get the ball downfield. Just having Lamar Jackson on that team will freeze your defense. They will have to respect the fact that if he has the ball, he may take off and run with it. All right, well, everybody, that is our wrap up for the AFC North and the NFC South. Next week, we're going to go east. We're going to take a look at the AFC East, and we're going to take a look at the NFC East. Hope y'all can join us next week, 6 p.m. Please like, share, subscribe. If you're on Facebook and you're watching this, please go to Parker Media Group. That way you'll get a notification when the show is about to start. Any updates on anything like that. This is Brian Parker. Appreciate y'all. We'll see y'all again next week. Hopefully my man Randall Hargrove will be with me then. But we'll see y'all then. Take care. Stay safe.